If you would take a guess, what muscle group would you say is most underrated? And what I mean underrated, I mean that it's not a focus, a part of your training. It's not something you think about as important. Now I'm here to tell you, every muscle group is important. But there are some muscle groups that are even more that you should focus on, because if you don't, you can be creating things that lead to imbalances that can cause more injuries, more pain, and then leaves you not looking proportional within your training. So you want to make sure that you are staying balanced. So I'm Lee Agbohlah with Ultimate Performance, and in this video, I will tell you the muscle group that is the most underrated muscle group, and it's a muscle group that you need to put as a priority and fix for yourself if you want to have the fitness that you really want and be able to crush your goals. So be sure to like and subscribe. So what is the muscle group that is most underrated? I'm going to tell you it's hamstrings. Now hamstrings are your thigh muscles, that is the back of your thigh muscles. Now with your hamstrings, there's three groups of the hamstrings that make up the hamstring muscle group. And it's important that you understand why the hamstrings are important. Now we know about hamstrings typically in sports where you see athletes typically have like hamstring issues. We know this is to be true because the hamstring plays an important part in explosive movements. But even if you're not an athlete, hamstrings are still important for you as well. And I'm going to tell you why. Let's start with the first part, and that's reducing knee pain. Now, why are hamstrings important with reducing knee pain? A lot of knee injuries that you see can be because the hamstrings are not strong enough to support the knee. Now, when you are doing certain movements or you're putting certain forces on your leg, your hamstrings is what can absorb the force and help you out. Often because the hamstrings are neglected because you're not training them, or you overemphasize training your quads, that you have imbalances. So when you have certain forces that you put on your knee, instead of being able to hold the support, you have issues with the knee where it leads to knee injuries because the hamstrings aren't strong enough to support that. Now this is critical because knee injuries are very common, and as you age, knee problems are more likely. So if you can strengthen your hamstrings, you will be able to better support the knee and absorb the forces. So you want to reduce your chances for having different knee injuries. You want to make sure that you're strengthening the hamstrings. And strengthening hamstrings are important by doing isolation hamstring exercises and doing compound hamstring exercises as well. It's important because the posterior chain, which is your hamstring, your glutes, and your back, think of that as the workload when you're doing certain movements that support, like pull movements and doing hinge movements, are very important that you properly use your lower half, and the hamstrings play an important part of that. So if you have had knee problems, start prioritizing hamstrings. It's important that you do this because then you will see the improvement in your overall leg strength and be able to support your knee better. I make it a key point within my clients that we prioritize hamstrings because many of my clients have suffered from either past knee injuries or deal with knee problems and typically have neglected their hamstrings. So it's important that I fix those imbalances so they can better support the knee. This is important not just for athletes, as I talk about how athletes need to do it because they do a lot of explosive movements, but even for yourself, but everyday movements as well that put force on your knee. You want to be able to better support that. So that's a big part of being able to support your leg better with specifically the knee joint, as well as reducing low back pain. Now we know most adults as they age, they deal with low back pain. Now yes, we know there's other things that can cause low back pain like bad posture, improper movements, and just as we know, age, different things, wear and tear happens. But the hamstring can play an important role as well if you're wanting to understand how to reduce the stress that you put on your lower back. So if I tell you to go pick up a package from the ground, it's more than likely that you're going to do it improper. This is why when I'm training clients, I teach them how to properly do movements. Yes, it's important for them to be able to lose weight, gain muscle, and ultimately have better fitness. But at the same time, it's important because I know how important doing different hinge and pull movements, that the hamstring plays a critical role in helping you, and that can reduce low back pain. So if you're overly using your back, that will cause issues. So if you're used to being able to have to pick things up, doing things around the house, if you're improperly moving when you're doing a hinge movement or doing a pull movement, that can cause low back problems. And we want to reduce that because this is a growing factor in adults. And if we have stronger hamstrings, we can reduce the stress on the lower back and properly support, which is key. Now, it may seem like hamstrings going to play an important role because when you think of lower back, you probably think of your lower back muscles. But as we just talked about with the knee, your hamstrings play an important role in the posterior chain movements. So it has to come from better movements from your legs, and that's what the hamstrings within you're doing different hinge moves and different pulling. So if you have stronger hamstrings, you reduce the stress that you have on your lower back. And you can think of it like tugging sometimes. So if you improve that, you got to understand your body is connected. So there's different chain link effects that will happen if certain things are not properly linked together. You'll see issues. So the low back is another part that you'll have problems if your hamstrings are weak or you're just not properly strengthening them. So we want to work on that as well. Having tight hamstrings can lead to more issues with the lower back as well. So we want to increase the mobility in that as well, which will play an important role. And lastly, to put it all together is just the overall movement part that your hamstrings are going to play a key role. So as I mentioned, when you are bending down, picking things up, your hamstrings play an important role. And over time, within sitting a lot, your hamstrings can get very tight. I know within what we're doing today, we're mostly in a chair, just like I'm doing right now. So if you're in the office all day, or you're driving to go to different meetings and different locations, your hamstrings will get tight. And as we talked about, that can cause imbalances. So your hamstring plays an important role in just overall movements. So we want to make sure that we are prioritizing the hamstrings so we can improve that. All muscles play a key role, but your hamstrings can help you with a lot of different things that you're doing. And as you're getting older and you're aging, you will notice how important the hamstrings play a bigger role in what you're doing. So you want to make sure that you're prioritizing it. So think of it very simple, just like you're training other parts of your body, you want to give it enough work. So don't neglect doing it. You don't have to do overkill and overemphasize it, but you do need to just make sure you're doing it. As I talked about, doing some compound movements. Those are different hinge movements that you can do, different leg movements that you're doing. It is important that you start prioritizing those hamstrings, and you can do some other isolation and do some other type of loading on the hamstrings as well, so it can better be able to manage different load and stress that you may put on your body with doing it. If you can start properly training those hamstrings correctly, you will notice how much better your knees feel, your back feels, and then your overall movements are just easier to do, and it helps you for your total fitness and being able to do everything. And if you still like doing athletic movements, like maybe just playing basketball or just playing different recreational sports, your hamstrings will play an important role in that as well. So you'll see yourself become a better athlete as well, which is always a plus for yourself within your fitness. So why do you need to prioritize those hamstrings? As we talked about, better support in the knees, so reducing the knee pain, reducing your lower back pain by reducing the stress that you put on your lower back, and for overall total movements within your fitness, and even some of your athletic movements as well. We want to make sure that we are putting an emphasis on strengthening those hamstrings. So let me know in the comments below, are you putting your hamstrings as a priority within your training? Are you making sure that you are training throughout the week? If you have dealt with other hamstring issues in the past, let me know. I have more tips that can help you as well with dealing with those hamstrings. And as always, be sure to like and subscribe and watch the next video.